The Galactic Empire had seen its share of soldiers, warriors, and protectors, but Captain William Will Cross was unlike any of them. A veteran from Earth, Will had served in countless conflicts across the stars, yet no records of existence could be found in any public database. This made him the perfect candidate for an assignment no one else could be trusted with, safeguarding Princess Alara of the Centauri Dominion, a powerful and beloved figure whose survival was critical to maintaining the fragile peace between warring factions. Alara, a radiant beacon of hope and diplomacy, initially balked at the idea of an Earthborn soldier as her protector. "He's just one man," she protested to her advisors. "Surely an elite Centauri security force would be more appropriate." Her chief advisor had hesitated before replying. "Princess, Captain Cross isn't typical. He comes highly recommended. Trust us, this is a man you want on your side." When she finally met Will, he seemed ordinary enough. Average height, lean but muscular build, short-cropped dark hair, and a calm demeanor that bordered on detached. He wore a standard combat suit, its design sleek but unremarkable, and carried no visible weaponry. His voice was low and steady, his words minimal but polite. For weeks he shadowed her every move, always a step behind, silent and observant. But everything changed when the first attempt on Alara's life came. They were traveling through the dense bioluminescent forests of Erythra 9, en route to a peace summit. The convoy was well guarded, with hover tanks and armed escorts flanking the princess's transport. Will rode alongside her in the rear of the vehicle, his gaze never leaving the surrounding trees. The ambush came swiftly. Explosions erupted on either side of the convoy, shredding the escort vehicles. Alien mercenaries, hulking figures clad in advanced combat armor, emerged from the shadows, their plasma rifles tearing through the royal guards with horrifying precision. Chaos ensued. Alara screamed as her transport was flipped by a concussive blast, her guards quickly overwhelmed. Before she could process what was happening, Will was in motion. He moved like a predator, calculated and terrifying. In one fluid motion he grabbed her, shielding her with his body as he kicked open the warped door of the transport. Plasma bolts hissed through the air as he sprinted into the forest with her slung over his shoulder. The princess could hear nothing but the pounding of her heart and the distant shouts of her attackers. When Will finally set her down, it was in a concealed alcove surrounded by thick, glowing foliage. "Stay here," he commanded, his voice like steel. "Don't move. Don't scream." Before she could protest, he was gone, melting into the shadows like a ghost. What happened next defied belief. Alara watched through the gaps in the foliage as Will systematically dismantled the attackers. He moved with an eerie, almost inhuman efficiency. One by one, the mercenaries disappeared into the darkness. Occasionally there was the faint sound of a blade slicing through armor, or a muffled scream abruptly silenced. When the last mercenary fell, Will returned, his expression as calm as ever. His suit bore scorch marks and his hands were bloodied, but his voice was steady as he said, "We need to keep moving." The princess had questions, so many questions, but Will offered no answers. It wasn't until they reached a secure hideout several days later that she began piecing the truth together. Curious and frustrated by his silence, she accessed her royal databases, searching for any information on William Cross. Nothing. Not a single record. Her brow furrowed as she expanded the search, delving into military archives and classified files. Finally, she stumbled upon a restricted file marked Black Operations, Earth Special Forces. It was heavily encrypted, but her royal access codes allowed her to bypass the safeguards. What she found chilled her to the core. Black Ops weren't soldiers. They were weapons. Trained from an early age in espionage, sabotage, and assassination, they were deployed for missions deemed too dangerous or morally questionable for regular forces. Their success rate was nearly 100%, and the cost of failure was measured in the lives of anyone who stood in their way. Reports detailed entire insurgencies dismantled overnight, governments overthrown, and species eradicated, all with surgical precision. More horrifying still was the reason they didn't appear in databases. Operatives were considered off the books, their existence officially denied by every government. If they were captured or killed, no rescue missions would be launched, and their names would be scrubbed from all records. They were ghosts, untouchable and unstoppable, and Will was one of them. Alara's hands trembled as she read the final entry. Black Ops operatives are unparalleled in combat effectiveness. Any hostile engagement against them is tantamount to suicide. Survivors of encounters are non-existent. This has led to the universal policy: do not provoke, do not engage. When she confronted Will, he didn't deny it. You wanted protection, he said simply. Now you have it. But you're... She struggled to find the words. You're a monster. Will's eyes darkened. A monster who saved your life. Remember that. The final test of Alara's trust came when the mercenaries struck again, this time at the heart of the summit. Trapped in a conference room with assassins closing in, Alara watched in horrified awe as Will unleashed the full extent of his training. His movements were so fast they seemed almost unnatural, his strikes precise and deadly. When it was over, the room was a bloodbath, and Will stood at its centre, unscathed. For a long moment the princess could only stare at him, the full weight of his existence settling over her. He was a man who lived in the shadows, whose hands were stained with the blood of countless lives. And yet, without him, she would be dead. "Why do you do it?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Will met her gaze, his expression unreadable. "Because someone has to, and because you're worth protecting." Despite her fear, Alara realized she trusted him. In a galaxy full of danger, monsters were sometimes necessary, and if she had to choose one, she was grateful it was him.